Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to this technical session of the Glasgow Declaration, focusing on climate action planning guidance. My name is Virginia Fernandez Trapa. I'm Program Officer at the World Tourism Organization, and it's a pleasure to have you here today. This is the third item of a series of webinars that we have been implementing in the run-up to COP27 to present progress achieved implementing the Glasgow Declaration in this first year, especially the efforts of our signatories, and also to keep you informed about the guidance materials that we have been working on, that we are working on, and that we are hoping to release together with your inputs very, very shortly. Next slide, please. The focus of today's discussion is mainly an interactive exchange with some frontrunners that have already released their climate action plans. We have with us UNWTO Executive Director, Ms. Zorica Urošević, and I will be very briefly, shortly inviting her to deliver welcome remarks. Then we will move on the panel discussion, where together with Jeremy Sampson, CEO of the Travel Foundation, we will be moderating our distinguished speakers. And the last part of the session will be devoted to exchanging on the way forward and answering any questions that you may have. So we hope to reserve a lot of time for this interactive exchange. Before I hand over to Ms. Urošević, just please remember, although you are all very familiar with the dynamics of Zoom, that is important you keep muted. And in order to facilitate everyone's understanding of who is connected, if you can rename yourself with the right click of the mouse to show your organization and then your name, it would be extremely useful so that we know who is who. Please note that we are recording this session, and if you stay with us, we assume we have your consent to later disseminate this recording. Thank you. And with this, I'm going to hand over to Ms. Zorica Urošević for her welcome remarks. Zorica, thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Virginia. Dear signatories of the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action, dear friends, it is a pleasure to join you today. I was not able to join the two other sessions, but I'm following very closely. And thank you, Virginia and Jeremy, for making it happen and making it concrete. I think that today we have the opportunity to really get insights from some of the signatories and looking at the preparation of the climate action. We know it is a complex and very challenging task because the diversity of the signatory is quite broad. We have tourism operators, we have hotels, we have destinations, and we are now starting to really have countries being committed more and more. We just welcome the Minister of Tourism of Indonesia, who signed it during the G20, the Tourism Authority of Monaco that came here in Madrid, and the Secretary of State of Tourism of Honduras, if I'm not mistaken, today or yesterday, correct? So the commitments that you as signatory are making are really should be tailored for each organization. And this is the immense task that we're engaged in as UNWTO, but as well Travel Foundation and all the partners that are trying to making it possible. We know that we all need to learn while we do, because many things are missing. Measurement tools are missing, financing is not there. So we need to, while we are making the plans, we need to factor those elements and this unknown to be able to move forward. And in the run-up to COP27, for which I hope we will meet few of you, we have this webinar series, which is going to be then continued for next year. We're going to adjust it to the specific needs, and maybe we have more deep dive in certain thematic. I think we already had an overall overview of opportunities and challenges and where we stand today. But I think that the release of the tools and methodology and a technical brief that has been provided are going to be very useful. So today, with the Travel Foundation, our last webinar before the celebration of COP27. And I wish us a very fruitful discussion and happy to hear all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zoritza, for your welcome remarks and for the support that you provide to the Glasgow Declaration for it to advance. So here we are, almost 1 year after the launch of the Glasgow Declaration at COP26. And where do we stand? As many of you know, the signatories have more than doubled since we launched. Basically, today we counting 713 signatories, but there is more because we still have a few undergoing due diligence. So that's quite a success, but we shouldn't be focusing on the numbers. We should be focusing on implementation. And this is what we have been doing since we had the first webinar at the beginning of the year, where we presented to all of you our priorities for 2022. And 2022 had measurement and had planning as its priorities. So 2 weeks ago, as Zoritza already mentioned, we had the webinar with Jeremy Smith on the technical brief that was a research piece developed together with the working group. So many consultations took place to basically develop that document. And in addition, we used the webinar as an opportunity to open the brief for a public consultation in case there were additional inputs from colleagues. Today, we're focusing on climate planning, so our second priority. And we wanted to take this opportunity to invite some frontrunners before COP27 to explain how they've done it. So how they have come up with their climate plan and what challenges this entail. Basically, the idea is to reassure you that it is challenging, but it is possible. And we have with us Visit Finland, we have the Oregon Coast Visitors Association, we have with us Explora, we have the Travel Corporation, we have Sustentur, we have Nextur, and Sustainable Tourism Consulting. So the speakers today represent a variety of stakeholders, which as a whole have gone through this same reflection process that you are seeing on the slide. So basically understanding where they were before doing the plan, understanding where they wanted to go, and making sure that they can get there within the means of their own organization, so that the plan is, let's say, ambitious, but still realistic and achievable. So the Travel Foundation has been supporting us in the development of guidance materials, in particular for tour operators and accommodation businesses. Those drafts are not yet released, so don't be surprised if you haven't seen it. Basically, they will become available quite shortly. We are using the webinar today as the opportunity to, let's say, send them to the working group. They will be disseminated to our working group for a first consultation and later open for public consultation. The thinking, nevertheless, which is contained in those documents, will be presented for you today, so you can be prepared and already ask questions and provide inputs that we can encompass on those documents. We have also additional guidance pieces in the making, so for destinations as well. We know how challenging it is. It will take a little longer, but it's in the making. And we are as well working on a policy brief to try to, let's say, make it easier for national tourism authorities to understand which policies or policy instruments they can advance to support climate action in tourism. Anyway, before we go to the panel discussion, let's hear from Jeremy Sampson. We are co-moderating today his insights, especially from this first year of implementation, and also how those guidance documents are coming together. Jeremy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Zoritza, Virginia, and it's great to see everyone here today. Hard to believe it's been a year since Glasgow, and it really does feel in many ways that you know, that the momentum continues to build. I was reflecting on the process of developing the Glasgow Declaration and launching the declaration last year, and how much it does feel that the conversation has evolved from 2020. UNWTO has just released some summary of the global research which was conducted at that time, capturing the landscape of travel and tourism, where it was pretty clear that the basic sort of foundational elements of climate action planning, knowledge, sort of capacity in our sector have been pretty low. We're pretty slow to get started. What action was happening was quite fragmented, and there's still a long way to go, but it feels like we are making real progress, and it's to all of you who have taken action, to the front runners that we have here today. And Virginia is quite right that we're not really only focused on the numbers of signatories, but I think it does make a difference to see that there is progress. And one of the things I think perhaps we don't emphasize enough about the Glasgow Declaration is that not only have we focused on accelerating capacity and bringing knowledge and guidance to all of you around key issues like measurement and planning, but the Glasgow Declaration is also meant to be a global platform for alignment and collaboration and collective thinking and action to help our sector respond to the greatest challenge of our time. And we're making progress there too. It's especially wonderful to start to see signatories coming now increasingly from the global South, from Latin America, from Sub-Saharan Africa. And again, a long way to go, clearly, but it is nice to see that momentum evolving, and as we continue to grow, I think that opportunity to come together and understand how we can maximize our efforts to respond to the challenge as the challenge itself sort of grows in urgency and scale, that this provides us with an opportunity to make a real difference. There has been significant action happening in every sort of corner of tourism. The Glasgow Declaration is separated into 3 different organizational typologies. There's been real significant action happening in the destination space with many new programs and learnings across all 5 pathways of the Glasgow Declaration, including the Regenerate pathway, which is primarily focused on adaptation. And I know a couple of our speakers will address some of the progress on that particular pathway today. But we are starting to see from a position where we had very few destination management organizations or sort of governmental organizations making commitments within tourism to a real shift in a sort of ability to make commitment and begin to implement climate action plans at scale and as real catalysts for our industry. The business community is starting to come together increasingly to align their efforts, and we see that through certainly the accommodation sector, where there is a growing sort of alignment, agreement on which are the most important aspects of a climate action plan, which are the key resources that add value to help people accelerate their plans, which are the key data points that organizations can collect and work together on to address supply chain issues and that sort of thing. And this comes out certainly in the guidance, which Virginia has referenced specifically for accommodation and tour operators. We've tried to identify, how is it that you get started if you have not already? Which are the resources that are, that are most valuable to reference, and what does a good climate action plan consist of? As more and more climate action plans come out and there's just more information available and being shared, that guidance will only strengthen, and we'll be able to align our efforts, as a declaration and as signatory typologies even more closely. I also want to recognize supporting organizations, of which we have many, and a few represented here in our panel today. Supporting organizations are critical to this initiative. Associations, media companies, membership organizations, consultancies. Each of you are taking your role quite seriously and understanding that climate action planning is not only about your own footprint, but about growing and becoming the catalyzers that we've always envisaged. And it's been amazing to partner with so many organizations who are taking that particular role to incentivize behavior change quite seriously. So our commitment is to continue to develop practical and useful guidance and education that meets the global need. Again, referencing that research, it was clear that we had to build really foundational guidance to help organizations across travel and tourism understand how to get started, how to build climate literacy, how to understand the links between climate action and tourism. And this bit about practicality, I think, is really important. We've always tried to balance the need for rigor and the need for urgency with the reality of the situation that everyone faces around resourcing and around the need to prioritize. Most importantly, what we're seeing is organizations starting to apply a climate lens to their day-to-day decision making, and that's really important. We don't want climate action to be a side project that is a tick box, but rather guidance that really helps our industry think about on a day-to-day basis how to apply climate action to the very decisions that are being made as our sector carves out a path forward in a changing paradigm. We expect that the community of signatories will continue to grow, and we expect our signatories to continue to shine and show leadership and bring peers along with them. And I'm really excited that we can now move into the panel today and hear today from many of the best who have been shining examples, who have done the hard work, and I know sometimes really hard work and really challenging work to figure out what does my plan look like without a great template to build off of, and this work will inform and inspire all the work that comes after it. So let's move into the panel and start to hear from them, and I hope you find just as much inspiration from them as I do. Virginia?
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's see if we can get the panelists pinned on the screen, and I think we can put the slide down. So Lisa and Patty and Juan, Shannon, Vicente, Judy. And Christina, of course. I forgot Christina, sorry. So Lisa, yeah, there we go. So, I mean, building on what Jeremy, first of all, thanks a lot for accepting our invitation. That's really a pleasure and an honor to have you here, willing to share with the others, with the signatories and others beyond. I think the first question I will address to Lisa, building on Jeremy's comments, where he basically echoed the need to collaborate and the need to, let's say, address this existential challenge, if you allow me, collectively, because otherwise we won't manage. So Visit Finland. So Lisa Kokarinen, she's the head of sustainable development at Visit Finland. Visit Finland is basically in charge of developing the Finland's travel image, and they help Finnish travel companies to internationalize, to sell and market high quality travel products. And earlier, excuse me, this year, in June, when we were at Stockholm Plus 50, I remember that we were all thrilled because Visit Finland announced their signing of the Glasgow Declaration together with 60 plus entities, enterprises from Finland. So the question, Lisa, is basically about how you have been building momentum since then. I mean, how did this all produce? How did you all, found that alignment, signed collectively, and where do you stand now with the plan? How are you supporting them? Would you let us know, please?
Yes, certainly. Thank you so much, and best regards from northern Finland, from the better side, and all the Finnish signatories. I can see that many of them are here, which really makes me smile, just like it makes me smile to see so many people all around the world, facing basically the same challenge, but not just a challenge, creating those solutions. Well, just a little brief background that actually in Finland, we really have a systematic approach to kind of like announce it out loud that our industry is taking action and needs to take further action. And that's when we decided then that it's time to sign the Glasgow Declaration. And in our way, we of course ask our industry partners that whether they would also like to sign. And that's how we came then the group of 60 stakeholders. And it's mainly businesses and destinations, but also those really important supporting organizations like Jeremy also mentioned. And this, I really feel that that's when things really started happening. That even that we have this solid background, we have our sustainable development, tourism development program, but when it comes to the climate action front, this is really when things got real. And our government has really ambitious goal to be the first carbon neutral welfare state. And some of our destinations actually who are also here today are those forerunners who are even more ambitious goals than our government. So planning to be carbon neutral already by 2025 or 2030. So we are actually working with the real forerunners here. So we really need to, as a governmental organization, I really see it so that we need to provide them also the support and tools to really to achieve their goals as well. Not only just wait to basically to get those behind to be with us. And this is really exciting, because this is part of the things, part of the reason that I feel that things are now really, really happening. Then it's building that excitement. And I think that why the things are now really going, because we did see that we need to accelerate, especially in the climate front, but because we're doing this together, that's why it's building that things are really happening now. And also now that thanks to the declaration, we're part of a global community. So it's not only that we are just domestically inside Finland working on this, because we alone can't solve the climate issues. And our message really is that that we don't want tourism industry to be seen as the problem, but we want to be part of the solution, and we are part of the solution. Especially now that we have the whole global community, we're part of it as well.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I absolutely agree with that statement. Tourism is and should be and must be part of the solution. And here we are advancing together. So let's now hear from Patty Martin. She is the climate scientist in Oregon Coast Visitors Association. The Oregon Coast Visitor Association, if I'm not mistaken, represents 7 county destinations, management organizations, and basically, Patty, effects of climate are already affecting your destination. And I know that the whole association has followed a process in these past months, quite transformational, until you got to your climate action plan. And one of the things that struck us most, Patty, was the reference you made to stakeholders being sometimes more open to talking about the plan as a resilience plan rather than as a climate action plan. So can you elaborate a bit on the process and how this all produced with your stakeholders? Thank you.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. And just to reiterate, it's delightful to be out of the dark ages of this climate action planning and be in the exciting place of collaboration and talking about this with all of you. I would say for the Oregon coast, communication has been a cornerstone for engagement in both positive and negative ways. We have learned a lot in this process. We've been working here for about 1.5 years developing our plan. And there's been some epic failures in terms of communication and some really great successes. And overall, our takeaway around communication in this space is for the Oregon coast and the political climate that we are in, it is crucial to frame climate action through a lens of resiliency. First, this allows us to depoliticize something that is very much a political talking point in the state of Oregon right now. It allows people to engage more in their climate stories. Not everyone wants to be viewed as taking climate action or engaging in climate solutions, but they are a lot more open to talking about how to make their business, their family, their community more resilient. And so this has been a crucial lens through which we have created our climate action plan. Late in our journey of right before we actually published it, we made the decision to pretty much change all of our language in our plan to that of resiliency, adaptation, and mitigation to be able to depoliticize. And it has been received well in that space. The other takeaway I would say that we have as an organization is ACWA is a regional DMO who has a small staff. There's a staff of 5. I work as a consultant there. And there's only so much a non-regulatory DMO can do in this space. So the focus for our plan has been to ensure that ACWA is able to take the most impactful actions it can take with the resources that it has. And so we have developed a prioritization scheme to be able to objectively and have a logic-based approach to choosing which actions we're taking. And this removes bias and it allows for the most impactful actions to really float to the surface. And so we prioritize actions based off of the speed at which it can be implemented, the emissions reduction potential, the resiliency potential, the reach, how many people it'll reach. Will it reach all the stakeholders or just internally the ACWA staff? And then how much does it take into account diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility? And so that has really helped shape our plan as well. And I would say the plan is published and these prioritization ideas are published in that. So if you're curious about it, I'll drop my email in the chat and I can send you the plan and also talk to you about how to think about this going forward a little bit more.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Oh, you go ahead, Virginia.
Please go. I wasn't sure you were going to take it.
It's okay. No, thanks, Patty. It's my turn for questions. I really appreciate your intervention, Patty, and particularly the piece about prioritization, because it's probably the number one question that signatories of all types are asking. You know, how do we prioritize? How do we again, given the sort of limitations that we all know about around resourcing, the varying contexts that everyone works in with stakeholders and how things need to be framed, I just think there's a tremendous amount of lessons to be learned from the work that you and Erica and the team have done and on the Oregon coast. So thanks for your offer to share with others. Lots to be inspired by. We're going to shift over to supporting organizations now, and I want to start with Christina from Nextdoor. If you don't know Nextdoor, network of European competitive and sustainable tourism regions. Christina, you had an opportunity this year to work on a climate action plan for the network. And I know that one of the key objectives in terms of building your own plan was getting buy-in from your member regions by including simple but compelling actions that they could really get behind and understand, particularly because your plan is one that needs to be presented and voted on, and that you've included in there a knowledge hub as a value add for members to really help strengthen their capacity. Just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process itself of creating the plan, you know, what were some of the key considerations and maybe some highlights of the plan and how the implementation process has started and how it's starting to catalyze change across your network.
Yes, thank you very much, Jeremy and Virginia. It's really a pleasure being with you. Thanks for having me and also for putting raising tourism higher in the COPA agenda. This is very much needed. So yes, we are a supporting organization. So as you said, Jeremy, our main focus of action when it comes to our climate action plan is how we can act as a catalyst, you know, to boost action and commitment at subnational level through tourism organizations, which is the area where we operate in Europe. And in this sense, for us, our main focus is, as you said, develop this sort of knowledge, but also projects hub. And I insist in the projects because what we observe is that project gives us the framework, the timing, but also the resources, the concrete outcomes, which are very much needed to then showcase good practices, foster transferring and capitalization, but also it helps a lot in communication and awareness raise. So for us, the main process is support our members in engaging in climate action in tourism. So it's a matter of helping everybody to be aware on the needs and the benefits. Also helping them to engage by showing, you know, examples, making it feel that they are not alone on their corner. There are good practices that exist that they can foster. There's already a lot that is going on that they can build on. It's a matter of empowering, and that is where we need not only capacity building, but resources that have been mentioning. And the whole process is about benchmarking, cooperating, and sustaining afterwards. So one of the main challenges when it comes to setting priorities that you also mentioned that we observe is, and that is the focus of our exchanges, is how we can integrate climate action plan into policy and across sectors. That's what our members see as the main driver that would have the biggest impact. So of course, if you have, is about having a range of interviews and meetings and lobby into the different departments of your government who in a way to the tourism is considered as a driver of the solution, because one of the key issues is that sometimes we are not competent. We don't have the competence for climate action, but there is a lot that we can come in if we can showcase some figures, some data in terms of carbon footprint, water footprint that can help us to raise stakeholders' awareness, not only in the government, but also the civil society, the stakeholders, the SMEs value chain, how much impact and beneficial can be for the people and the destination itself. So for this, there is a lot going on in terms of developing monitoring systems, for example, how circular economy can be implemented across the different sectors. But it's about really teaming up with the authorities that deal with the climate action regulation, about energy efficiency applied to tourism value chain, about mobility, sustainable mobility solutions door to door. So there is a clear opportunity for tourism, but also for climate action to embrace tourism. So what we are defending as well is the fact that the operational programs, so those plans, those strategies at regional and national level, putting them in contact with where the funding opportunities are and making them understand the specificities of our sector in a way that we can deliver meaningful projects. But the main lesson, the main message is that we should not wait until all the pieces of the puzzle are set up, because there is a lot of potential that has been already mentioned, but the colleagues can certainly say that DMOs have in already delivering concrete action. So for me, from our experience, I very much agree that what we need is this behavioral change, this call for action, where tourism is perceived as this solution for delivering carbon neutral destinations. And if we see tourism as a solution, We will have political commitment that it was mentioned also that is very much needed. We will have long-term career opportunities. We will have methodologies and figures and data, and we will have funding.
I love the thoughtfulness and the strategic thinking. It's one of the best things about working with Christina and Nextdoor, and particularly the point about you know, whether or not you need to have all the knowledge. I mean, and certainly you don't, and none of us do, in order to catalyze action and sort of open the doors and windows that are required to you know, to bring forward the necessary response. And I really appreciate the way that you've structured your intervention. Nextdoor, I don't think maybe people don't even quite realize just how small an organization Nextdoor is, how small the Secretariat is, and how much they're able to influence through, you know, a really limited amounts of resources and capacity, and it's just impressive to see you know, what it is that you're able to capitalize on when you think about the actions that will actually inspire behavior change across that sort of ripple effect that you have responsibility and accountability for. That's a great segue, I think, over to Vicente Ferreira from Sustentur in Mexico. Also a small organization, but with a really outsized footprint, and I don't mean footprint in the bad way. You know, I mean in a, you know, in a really positive sense, in terms of the inspiration that you've been able to catalyze in Mexico and you know, and across the various stakeholders that you're engaged with. So Vicente, I think it'd just be interesting to hear your story, because there you know, sort of significant progress in Mexico this year, both in terms of bringing signatories to the table, holding events that you know, that help spread the inspiration and education, and demonstrating leadership at the sort of national and global level around adaptation, which I know is particularly important to you and to stakeholders there. So be great to hear your story, Vicente.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you as well, Virginia, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here with these amazing panelists. I'm learning a lot, and I really see a great opportunity to share experiences of what we are doing in our places, in our countries. And well, we are signatories of Glasgow as supporting organizations, and one of our main goals as supporting organizations was to invite to the tourism industry, to the Mexican tourism industry, to be part of Glasgow Declaration, to become signatories. And maybe the first really shocking activity was to realize that in Mexico, at that time, maybe March, April, where there was about 500 signatories globally in Mexico, there was only 3 signatories, no? And the 3 signatories were supporting organizations. So the first thing that we realized is that maybe the Mexican tourism industry wasn't aware about the importance of Glasgow Declaration and about the importance of becoming like a global members of a global initiative as important as Glasgow Declaration is. So our role has been to educate and has been to put our platforms, including our media, and an event that you may know that we organized the last 6 years, the Sustainable and Social Tourism Summit. That is an event focused on sustainability in tourism that is held in Mexico, to really increase the number of signatories, but not only by increasing the numbers, but have information about what we are doing in Mexico. I mean, in Mexico, there's a lot of efforts of Mexican companies about climate footprint, but as well in adaptation. You mentioned in Mexico, in countries like Mexico, the focus on climate change maybe has been adaptation because of the impact that we are suffering, especially in coastal zones. And well, we had the opportunity just 2 months ago to have Jeremy here, to have Dirk Glasser from the UNWTO here in Mexico, in Guanajuato, to be part of this collective signatory. We have a great event where 10 Mexican companies and 1 subnational government become signatories of the Glasgow Declaration. And it's important not only because of the number. I mean, we didn't achieve the goals as Finland. That's great to have 60 signatories, but it was really important for Mexico for two reasons. The first one is that the Mexican tourism industry understood why it's important to be part of these global efforts. And I think from September to now, we have been talking with a lot of people that want to become signatories and to become leaders in terms of climate action. But the second one that is really important is, as Cristina was saying, about politics, about public policy. Now, the fact that one subnational government, that is Guanajuato, became a signatory is really important because it's an example. It's going to become to the other 31 subnational ministries of tourism would become signatories and to add to a national agenda. And just to finish, I just want to tell you that we are really happy because for the first time, a Mexican subnational Ministry of Tourism is going to attend COP. Our Ministry of Tourism of Guanajuato is going to be at COP27, giving this information and giving this example that the Mexican tourism industry is really committed. And I'm really happy and really positive about the future of climate action in general and in Mexico, and of course, Glasgow Declaration in our country.
Jeremy, can I jump in for a second?
Please, yeah.
Basically,
please.
I just wanted to say that in addition to the Minister of Tourism of Guanajuato, we also have the Minister of Environment of Guanajuato in that same panel, so as to highlight how much or how important it is that both institutions collaborate. Sorry, I know we're running out of time.
I was going to say the same, actually. In fact, it was a joint signing of the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Tourism coming together to recognize the importance of collaboration between the two ministries, and driven by the Ministry of Environment's clear statement around how important tourism is for biodiversity protection and conservation. So it was really quite an amazing moment, and would like to be great to see how that plays out at COP 27. I want to turn it over to Judy Kefergona now, who has been an incredible advocate for the Glasgow Declaration, among many other things over the years, but I know has been particularly doing a great amount of awareness raising around the Declaration, using events, using her network to gain support and commitment and representation, most importantly, from Africa. So Judy, it's great to see you, and it'd be wonderful to hear your comments and thoughts about what's been accomplished and where we go from here.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for having me in this forum today. This kind of forums are very important. I've been scrolling through the lists of participants. I wanted to see how many Africa-based tourism companies are here today, and again, unfortunately, there are very few of them. Now, Sustainable Travel and Tourism Agenda is a knowledge-based organization. We use education to change mindsets, because we believe that if people are not changing their minds, then they will not be able to act. And for people to change their minds, they have to hear the same thing over and over again. So our approach and plan to pushing the Glasgow Declaration has been about continuous education, continuous information, repeating it even when we have said it before, saying it at any opportunity that we find, because we want it to stay in people's minds. Now, one of the biggest challenges for a breakthrough has been for African-based operators and the tourism industry, is that from what we have found out as an organization, is that the activism around climate crisis has actually clouded a lot of thinking for many organizations. And everybody's thinking about, it's not our fault. Yeah, so we need reparation. So this whole campaign of damage and loss has actually been used. We have been to places where we talk about it, and operators and business tell us it's not our fault. We are waiting for compensation. And we've tried, like Jeremy, you've said, at every given forum, in a seminar, in a conference, we actually bring in somebody, sit there with a computer. We have a Glasgow desk, and have somebody take industry through it, make them understand what it's all about and the process that it all takes. It's been a slow process, but we're still proud of the few that we have managed to get to change their minds about this and sign the declaration. Last week in Botswana, there was an Africa Tourism Leaders Forum. In this forum, the agenda was about everything else, but there was nothing in the agenda for climate. And I took it up with the organizers and said, how can we sit here with such a forum with this kind of people represented and not talk about climate? And part of the organizing team was, if you want to ask a question about climate, just ask, but we don't have a session to talk about this. And anyways, I had a chance to ask a question, and instead I talked about the declaration and referred everybody to the website to go and sign it up. And to my shock, there are many people who came and asked me, what are you talking about? What is that Glasgow Declaration that you're talking about, that you're so passionately talking about? So when we talk about, we are still at a stage where we've got to get people to change their minds about, mindsets about how they perceive the climate crisis and the role and responsibility of the tourism industry and why they have to be at the table. I challenged the African leaders in tourism and told them, if you go to Egypt without a united voice, that you don't know what you want to do and you're not making any commitments, you would have let Africa's tourism down. So you better get your act together, because there was representation from Africa Union as well. Get your act together and put some commitments, get the African tourism leaders to make their countries sign this declaration. Now, in the process of doing all this, it's been a hard wall to push because of what I've said. There's a strong feeling that we are the ones who have been wronged and we need to be compensated, and it is not our time to act yet. This responsibility belongs to someone else. Now, what, as an organization, there's something else that we did. We decided that we are going to give climate crisis a human agenda. And so instead of talking about net zero, we started talking about positive impacts, positive human impacts by 2030, positive human impacts by 2050. How would it look like if we do tourism in a way that it brings positive impacts to human beings? In other words, we're still talking about mitigating every challenge, including climate, but we're giving it a human face. And so we're saying, then you've got to use the resources that you have. You've got to use them properly so that they're available for the next generation, so that we have a net positive impact by 2030 out of tourism activities. And therefore, they start thinking about, oh, so how would that be? What would it mean for my business? It's been easier to talk to small businesses. And so we have made a commitment. We are signatories of the declaration. We are a support organizations like all the others around the table. And our commitment is that we want to reach 10,000 small businesses with this message of responsibility and how they can work to create net positive human impact. In other sense, we are going to include the climate crisis in our trainings and support for businesses to be resilient. And so when I had, I can't remember who spoke about resilience, whether it's Patty or Lisa, but when they talked about resilience, I immediately resonated with that. Businesses want to hear things that will make their business more resilient. And so if you turn it around and not make it their responsibility, or they feel like we have to do this on behalf of somebody else, then they start thinking, I'm doing it for my own business. I'm actually building my business resilience. I'm not signing this declaration for you and WTO or for whoever wants it. I am actually taking these actions for my own business. And that resilience lens and the human lens when they are combined, I believe that we will be able to accelerate the rate at which the tourism industry will sign and participate in the declaration. The other challenge, Jeremy, is that there is a problem of interpretation of commitments. I know the declaration comes with a process, but businesses as well as countries, my own country, Kenya, coming out of Glasgow last year, there were some pronouncements that were made by the Minister for Tourism around the commitments for Kenya. Now, when we tried to find out whether this has been documented anywhere and whether it is in any government policy or white paper or anything for the tourism industry, there was none. So there is nothing to guide the industry on what the prioritized actions are for Destination Kenya. And so businesses are saying, so what are we going to do? My little thing might not amount to much, but if we are working towards something as a destination, whatever little we do will amount to much, and we can report on something that we could have done. So that lack of prioritization is also a challenge for many destinations when it doesn't come from the top or from the policymakers.
Thank you so much, Judy. I agree. I mean, we need to work top down and we need to work bottom up, hoping that both sides will converge sooner than later. So I'd like to thank you for your efforts helping us mobilize stakeholders in Africa. Is really important. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the guidance, we are on it. As Patty was putting it, we're basically coming out of the dark ages, so it takes a little time to do so. Colleagues and participants, we are running late. Can I ask you to stay connected for 10 extra minutes until maybe 10 after 4, so that we can hear from our two last speakers? And also, I regret that we should have booked for maybe 2 hours or so to allow for Q&A. Don't worry, we will make part 2 of this webinar right after the COP as soon as possible. So back to the discussion. Let's now hear, I mean, we've been hearing from destinations, we've heard from supporting organizations, signatories. Let's now hear from an accommodation provider and a tour operator. So I'll invite Juan first, Juan Barambio. He's sustainability manager at Explora. Explora basically crafts explorations and journeys in remote locations like Patagonia, Atacama Desert, Eastern Island. I mean, all very fragile ecosystems, and they are a B Corp. So Juan, can you tell us a bit about your journey approaching climate action? Where do you stand? What recommendations do you have, please?
Hi, everyone. It's been great listening to everyone, and I'm delighted and don't know what to say now. But yeah, from a business perspective, we arrived to the climate, let's say, challenge a bit late. We started talking about this in 2019, but we've been trying to catch up. You know, since then, we've realized that we probably should have taken action much before, but we cannot rewrite the past, let's say, but we can try to catch up for the future. So we went to Glasgow last year. Our CEO went there and signed the Glasgow Declaration. Now we are working on many things. Well, first, of course, we need to be carbon neutral. And it's been not easy since we had our operations shut for almost, even in some areas, for 2 hours and for 2 years and 6 months. The Rapa Nui Island opened just a month ago after closing on March 2020 due to the COVID crisis. So we've been having, obviously, as probably most of tourism businesses, we've been struggling with funding, but we have, kept our flag in terms of carbon neutrality and obviously reduction and offsetting all of our impact. Though it's debatable how useful is the offsetting, we have decided to keep it because it helps somehow. It's not sufficient, but it does. But then we realized that, as many were saying, we need to be part of the solution. So we have partnered with relevant environmental organizations for the creation of reserves, nature reserves, and restoration projects in different parts of the Patagonia and other places in South America. That's how we want to collaborate in terms of regeneration, which is something that is, I mean, we probably need to talk more about it because we can keep things as they are, but things weren't like this before, and we really need to work a lot on that. And in that line, we also realized that though we started working on climate change things on 2019, we have had impacts for about 30 or 25 years before that. The first Explora Hotel opened in 1993, and we were confronted with the question, well, what are we gonna do about that? Are we gonna just look forward and don't look back into what our impact has been in all these years? So we came up with a commitment, which is quite powerful, but also it's a heavy commitment. We decided that we wanted to be historically carbon neutral, and that we wanted to calculate our historic footprint and offset it through the years before 2030. Which is quite a big challenge. It's probably going to be over $1 million considering the prices of offsetting schemes and credits during these years, but it's something that we are committed to because being part of the solution also implies being responsible for whatever actions you've done in terms of the climate crisis, not from now on, but from whenever any company started. Another challenge has been to mingle growth and decarbonization, especially as we work in remote areas. All of our operations, except for one, are off-grid. And being off-grid and needing to be, like reliable in terms of your energy sources has implied that in many cases we have had to include, like fossil fuel systems for energy generation. We are trying to change that, and it's a good thing that energy generation now it's affordable with clean energies. Now we need to take that into big scale and projects that are sufficient for our energy demands, which has not been easy. And then another challenge has been to turning into electromobility. We operate in big areas, we require a lot of transport, and we are present in two of the sources for the electromobility in the world, being one, the Atacama Desert, and the other one, this one I have here, the Uyuni Salt Flat. Those are the places where the lithium for batteries on electric vehicles everywhere around is coming from. But you see zero electric vehicle operating there in the tourism sector. So how do we change that, and how do we change that quickly is the question we are posed to. And we have realized that is something we cannot change alone, and we require destinations, we require even the vehicles company to somehow have programs, for selling these vehicles in areas that require that. So that is another agenda in which we are working to. And then when talking to other businesses in our destinations, I'm confronted many times with situations similar to what Judy was presented. In Patagonia, the effects of climate change are massive. You see the glaciers receding year after year, but people there like to burn, like wood for heating because the chimneys are very beautiful, And when we were saying that we need to measure our carbon footprint of the one particular destination, they say, well, but if we do that, we need to take action, and we are not ready to take action. We are in an economic crisis due to the pandemic, so we don't want to change things now. We want to first recover and then do things. But the way we see it and how we need to convince them is that we need to do things better from now and recover from the crisis, but not sacrificing the climate on the way for economic, recovery. So I also align with what Patty was saying. This is about resilience, and we need to take this action very soon. And as a business, we have been confronted to very critical decisions We are in an economic crisis as well, but luckily we have had, the leaders that are committed with this and that really want to be part of the solution. So that's the road we are taking. If anyone would like to know more about it, I'm free to, and happy will tell you more, but as we are running out of time, I leave it there.
Thank you, Juan. I'm serious on the organizing part 2 of the webinar, so I hope that we will have the time for the questions there. Shannon, I'd like to invite you to share a bit with us now, please. Shannon Gihan, she's Chief Sustainability Officer at the Travel Corporation, which is a private hotel group and travel company that operates in over 70 countries worldwide with brands like Trafalgar, Kontiki, Uniworld River Cruises, Red Carnation Hotels, etc., etc. And I know, or we know, Shannon, that you have advanced quite a lot in the implementation of climate action and your plan. In fact, you had a plan before Glasgow Declaration came into place. As you are the last speaker and you're also quite versed on measuring scope 3 because of the dimensions of your business and the nature of your operations, could you let us know where the discussion stands in the Travel Corporation regarding, not only achieving scopes 1 and 2 targets, but also looking at scope 3, in which actually you have representatives from accommodation, you have representatives from other businesses, you work at destinations, etc. Where is yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello from Toronto, everybody. And there's appreciate the invitation. There's clearly a lot of expertise and knowledge on this panel. So thank you. Certainly, so we're different in so much as we're privately held. The commitment from the top is real. We had launched our climate action plan, as Virginia, you noted, prior to the Glasgow Declaration. That said, it did prompt an evolution of our climate action. And it did that by prioritizing net zero, which brought us down the path of a path we're already tracking towards, because this is always going to be a process of change. Sustainability must be. But tracking towards science-based targets, what that means is in a matter of weeks, we will be launching an update to our climate action plan after just, I don't know how many years it has been, a year and a half, 2 years, it's COVID years, it's a blur. But what it does is it heavily, in fact, almost singularly prioritizes reductions. So again, as you noted, we have made inroads on scope 1 and 2. We are a brand. We have 40 travel brands, 5,000 plus, 500 plus in our fleet of transport, 17 hotels, river cruise ships. We have a very large portfolio, and I articulate that because we are asset heavy, meaning we're scope 1 and 2 heavy. At the same time, while scope 1 and 2 are arguably relatively easy compared to scope 3, scope 3 still makes up almost 80% of our footprint. So it is inordinately important for us to address scope 3. And we all know this. But I articulate that percentage because we are also a considerably sized buyer. And we all know that the supply chain is shared by and large amongst us as buyers. And so that is where activities such as Glasgow is so important to us in our work, because there is no way that I, as a singular buyer, even though we have 40, can affect the change in scope 3 that we need. That is where destinations, the supply chain are so important, the regulatory environment are very, very important to us. Specifically where we are in scope 3 is we have built a custom trip carbon calculator. We had to build custom because there wasn't anything off the shelf. I would argue for the average SME, don't build custom if you can avoid it. There's lots of calculators out there, but we are a complex beast. We have recently updated it with new carbon factors and with a tool that actually is built for our experienced designers. You're going to get a green light if we think it's a sort of, I don't know, carbon happy item that you've put in our itinerary. You're going to get a big red light if it's carbon intensive, just to try and change that behavioral shift internally that we need to see, because this is a massive sort of social change in addition to technological change and infrastructure change. And so by the end of Q2 next year, we'll have completed 80% of our 1,000+ itineraries, and we'll know the carbon footprint across regions. And we'll be able to go and work with destinations in a more meaningful capacity, because we'll have that visibility into where our footprint lies in destination, which I believe will be very useful in our partnerships with destinations to be able to say, this is what we're up against. Here are the regions we need some support on. You know, working with the Travel Foundation and Visit Scotland on infrastructure for transport. You know, just as you had mentioned, Juan, you know, we work directly with vehicle builders and destinations on that network that we all share as an industry to try and hit up transportation, which is going to be one of the heaviest part of that 80% scope 3 footprint that I had articulated earlier. So for us at the moment, visibility is key into our footprint, because it's helping, as I said, guide those discussions on meaningful collaboration. And it's also helping guide discussion, not with collaboration with destinations, but with our peers. Because of course, we all have shared goals, and we all are also very aware of how to appropriately engage the supply chain in a way that doesn't frustrate, have the sort of royal you shut down, or cause reporting fatigue. So there is a lot in discussion at the minute on the way in which we cannot address scope 3, and it's I suppose it's what I lose sleep about at night, but it's also, I'm seeing progress. I'm seeing some real signs of change, and I would like to just end on that, because I know that there's every week another document on how bad it is, but I am seeing a lot of discussion, and I would say the current conversation on climate has progressed many of our suppliers, even on coaches, to move up their timelines to produce. And so this is motivating change. And I think that we need to try and articulate that change is happening, because we all need a little bit of those green shoots to keep, I don't know, to look at our kids. So it is happening. My son does ask me about it a lot. I hope that's what you're after.
Yes, thank you so much, Shannon. Very, very inspiring, very useful. I mean, what we try to do with the guidance is actually try to make it simpler to approach, especially for those that are starting on the journey. So I'd like to thank all of our distinguished panelists. You've been amazing, and really expect our invitation for part 2, because I'm sure the audience would like to maybe have questions. We'll find a date that is convenient for everyone. Just to explain the way forward, I would like to take a minute, Jeremy, if you agree. So basically, as mentioned, documents are in motion. We have so far seen more or less 60 plans, a bit more climate action plans released by signatories of the Glasgow Declaration. We have enabled a website where all the signatories are featured. It has problems, it's not still running smoothly. The idea is that it will be feasible for the signatories to upload your plans in your profile on the website. In the meantime, if you already have a plan and you're struggling with the website, just email it to us. We will do it for you. So you know what you can expect more or less with the guidance is basically a breakdown of each of the pathways in ways that are, let's say, easier to approach. For example, on measurement, I can anticipate that we will be requesting for accommodation and tour operator that scopes 1 and 2 are measured within the first year of the implementation of the plan, and if possible, starting to look at scope 3, notably business travel, but if possible, other categories as well. In terms of decarbonization, we would be combining, let's say, the setting of targets, which is connected to measurement, with identifying already changes in practices that you can already go ahead and start implementing, even if you are in parallel starting to measure. So things like energy use, waste management, your transport, food and beverage, water use, etc. There are, let's say, recommendations and checklists to help you identify what actions you can prioritize. Same goes for the regeneration pathway. And as you know, collaboration and finance are more or less, let's say, verticals, although they show horizontally here, that will allow us to advance those 3 main pathways. So it's not rocket science what we are proposing, is logics that we hope that will help you advance. But at the end of the day, each organization would need to tailor the plan to its own capacity, ambition, realm of action. So we are here to support as much as possible. And for those that were launch partners, so the ones that had joined at COP26, in the next few days, you will receive a message informing you that we have an extended deadline for the submission of the plan of those initial signatories. We had said 12 months, but it feels a bit unfair to ask for the plan when some of you didn't get the guidance yet. So we are allowing for extra 6 months to submit the plan. Remember that the Glasgow Declaration has a reporting commitment as well, where climate plan actually is the baseline for that reporting to happen. Reporting mechanism will be enabled in 2023, and we really hope that all signatories can submit the plan in time as soon as the guidance with the minimum requirements is released. Again, apologies for not having calculated well the time. I'm really excited about this process and movement we are in together, and look forward to continuing. Jeremy, over to you for the closing.
Yeah, no, just a thank you to all the panelists. It was great to even sit back and just listen to this conversation and all the various perspectives. I feel just reflecting again on the journey of the last couple of years and feel like we have a community here of committed actors. And I just want to put it out to all of you, to our panelists, to our attendees that are still with us. I think the way we go forward is to continue to inspire one another, to continue to be open and to continue to share your plans. They don't have to be perfect. Share your challenges, share your problems, invite your peers to sign in the way that many of our inspiring panelists are doing. And maybe to reflect back Judy's comment, say it again and again and again. Maybe we need to just repeat things over and over again, and then help people understand what it is that we are trying to do here. And right, it's not because the UNWTO wants you to, or because the Child Foundation wants you to, it's because it matters for our future. Yeah, Shannon, I also get these questions now from my kids, and it is certainly the motivating force for me. But I think next year we can be at 2,000, but it's not about the numbers. It is about our ability to get together and respond collectively, and getting that critical mass does make a difference. So great to be here today, to have this time to reflect. I'm looking forward to the next ones, and thank you all for your time. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, everyone. Next one will be on positive human impact for resilience of tourism and the planet. So looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.